everybody. Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Brandon Cobb, co-founder of HPG Capital. I've got Joey Mure on the show. He is the co-founder and partner at Wealth Without Wall Street. He's got an online community that seeks to re-educate business owners and families on how money truly works. Wall Street is not just a street in New York that puts Americans' money at risk, but it's also a commonly taught mindset. Wealth Without Wall Street exists to help people who want to become financially free without ever having to invest through Wall Street or becoming debt free as well. And Joey, he has built a roadmap from going to $2,500 per month to $50,000 per month in passive income. We're going to be talking about that today. Joey, welcome to the show.
Oh man, good to be with you. I love being in the room with like-minded people.
Yeah, no, very much so. I'm excited. I want to jump into your story, but before we do, those that don't know you, give us a little bit of backstory here. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so man, I spent 11 years in the mortgage business and through that process, recognize that man, high income doesn't equal freedom. And I don't know if anybody can relate, but as your income increases, many times your hours increase and your time with your family and the people that you're working so hard for gets squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, almost to the point where, as I talked to my wife years later, she didn't even think we were going to make it, our marriage. And, I was mentally out there, always working, always on the hamster wheel, trying to make the next dollar, the next deal go through. So, because I had to keep that hamster wheel moving. And I recognized that there was a problem. Really came down to I had no money at work on my behalf. It was only me. And so I needed to have more passive income than I have monthly expenses. And once I got that figure, that formula straight in my head, I just started to now see the world in a different way, and that became my process to getting to financial freedom.
What was the switch? Because the biggest issue that I see people make, I used to do medical device sales and I'd be going through the garage and I would see the companies that come and park next to the doctor's Mercedes and we're cleaning it out and shining it and detailing it every single week. And I noticed a lot of the high income doctors, they were in golden handcuffs because as their income increased, so did their lifestyle. And I feel like that's the biggest killer of financial freedom is it's like, oh, the excitement of making more money and introducing more things and stuff to it is just too appealing. How did you go about creating that additional income to invest that started the snowball that became this avalanche into what I want to get in with to you here in a minute,
Yeah.
which is $50,000 per month in passive income you created?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. You can't skip steps on your way to passive income greater than monthly expenses, becoming an investor and all those things. You can't skip steps to financial freedom. And the first one that I accidentally, kind of went into was I quit putting money into things like 401ks, IRAs, retirement type vehicles, and other types of money traps. And we can dive into those if you want. And, equity in your home, leaving money in your business, paying off debts. All these things are money traps that we've been told are good for us, but they don't really put us in position to get to financial freedom. And so I stopped doing that. I started putting money into my own control. I learned about the concept of infinite banking in 2009, and that changed everything. That was literally the moment that I recognized one, I have to put money into my control. And once I did, it then took me to the next step, which was I had to become my own investor. I could no longer abdicate my money to Wall Street, for instance. And again, we can dive into all these components, but that's where it really made a difference.
And when you say Wall Street, I'm assuming you're referring to like stocks, index funds, the usual stuff, bonds, what most people are just overweighted in their 401ks and their self-directed accounts because that's the only
100%.
options they give you in
Exactly.
those accounts. Wall Street literally controls it because if you're not doing a self-directed account, which I'm sure you probably teach to a lot of your investors that sign up with you and get introduced to your program that creates the blueprint that they need to build their own monthly income, reach financial freedom. They don't have any other options, right?
That's right. Yeah, the 401k and any of these retirement type vehicles are predicated on the idea that retirement is the answer. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, as a believer, I've learned that I'm not promised tomorrow. And so to live in light of my age 65 or 70 or whatever they tell me my retirement age is a myth. It's a vapor, if you will. And to a certain degree, it's actually a lie in the fact that, I can eventually, sail off into the sunset and go out of service. Like retirement truly means to be taken out of service. And I don't know about you, Brandon, but we bring value to the world in what we do. And I don't ever want to be taken out of service. I want to continue to bring value to the world, no matter what my financial needs are, if that makes sense. And so, man, not only did you not understand what's happening with money once it hits the 401k, because I can tell you I didn't. I was like, I hope it works out. I have no idea. I
Mhm.
can't influence it in any way, shape, or form. I wasn't informed about the different ETFs or, mutual funds that it was being invested in. I couldn't name 10 companies that were listed in those mutual funds, right? Let
Right.
alone the actual products that they sell or anything like that. And so I'll just tell you, we take control, you start putting money into your access where I can get my hands on it. And I'll tell you this, as soon as you start stacking up capital in a place, it starts to ask you, what do you want me to go do with this? Like, what do you want me to go invest in? Because I can't just sit here, right? Cash has to be moving or it's dead, right? And so once I started stacking up cash, I then had to become an investor. And I will tell you, I was not a good investor when we started. In fact, I would say I was a terrible investor. Um, but there's a education component and process that we now take people through that we had to learn the hard way. And now it helps people get their first $500 a month in passive income within 12 weeks.
So let's start with the $2,500 a month. What did that look like? How much capital did you have? Where did it come from? What'd you invest it in?
Yeah, good question. At the time, we had been investing in Ethereum mining computers. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So
And okay.
crypto mining computers who were mining Ethereum coins. And for the cost of, the power bill and the maintenance of it, they were being managed at a facility up in South Dakota, actually. And those were kicking off so much more cash flow in Ethereum dollars that we could trade for dollars, right? Or Ethereum coins that we could trade for dollars than what it was costing us to maintain it. That's where the bulk of that 2,500 was coming from. I think we each had a rental property. This is me and Russ together, by the way. So we combine our report and do it every single month to our audience. By June of 2020, that was about all that we had in terms of money coming in was from those three or four different vehicles.
Okay. So you're doing Ethereum mining starting out. Very interesting. You're the first person that I've had on the show that says they've invested in Ethereum mining. And uh man, let me ask you, do you wish that instead of turning that into dollars, you just held on to that today?
I do. In fact, we did, for the most part, we held on to a lot of them,
Okay.
Ethereum coins, and then we just put them in our wallets. But, at some point they went away from the proof of work to the proof of stake. And once that happened, they basically were not usable anymore. The computers were just completely not usable. We had to liquidate them. And so then we jumped into like a Bitcoin mining fund just because we thought this isn't something we want to do for a lot of cash flow. We want to do it for like almost like a currency backup, like an alternative currency. And who knows what will ever happen of that. But that has not worked out nearly as well as the Ethereum mining. It's just not super efficient.
And how much money did you invest in the Ethereum mining operation that was able to produce $2,500 per month, roughly what, somewhere around 25, 27, $28,000 per year?
Yeah, it actually went up even higher than that later on. There was some months where it was like 6, 7,000 a month. But these were originally, I want to say these were like $8,000 computers. Um, if it was even that much, man, now you're making me go back in my memory banks here. I can't remember what we actually paid for them to begin with. I want to say it was like $8,000 a piece, and they were kicking off, sometimes six, seven, $800, $1,000 a month. And so it was a good
Wow.
return,
Yeah.
when it was good. And there was other months where this was probably in 2020, no, excuse me, 2018 or 2017, Ethereum went down big time.
Yeah.
And we were just basically breaking even on the cost to maintain them or sometimes losing some money, but we kept them. And then all of a sudden, Ethereum went through the roof, and we were just making tons and tons of money on it after the basis had already been paid back. So um, that was a learning lesson for sure.
Wow. So how did you grow it from $2,500 a month, somewhere around 2018, 2020, I think is what you said some days,
Yeah,
all the way up into the $50,000 per month that it is today? And what are you invested in that's 50 grand a month? And how much capital is it taking to produce that type of result?
yeah, good questions. First and foremost, I'll tell you this: whatever I'm about to share, don't go do what I do. You need to figure out what sort of investor you are. And I'll say this, Brandon, most people never think about this. They think only about ROI or, man, this guy had success, so I can have success doing it. And I'll tell you, we found this out the hard way, but if you have a specific investor DNA, we call it investor DNA profile. And it's based largely off of like a personality test. And once we do that for people. We take them through this process, they figure out their profile, and then they match it to about 16 different passive income experiences or opportunities. And we say, man, these are the pros of that. These are the cons of that certain vertical as it relates to your personality profile. And so, therefore, I should really kind of whittle down this long list into two or three things that maybe I should focus on my investing because they really align with who I am. Like, I'm going to be much more comfortable with it, or I'm going to be able to run fast because I'm doing more of what I love and less of what I don't. So keep that in mind, number one.
Yeah,
Um,
this is not financial advice, essentially. This is just what's worked for you.
that's right. Um, and so what we did right out of the gate that I think was valuable is we did two things. We invested in a land flipping partnership. Okay, so very similar to what you guys are doing, except for the fact that we were then, instead of doing development type deals and selling them off in these large tranches, we were doing small individual cash flow deals, meaning we would own or finance those properties to an end retail buyer.
Mhm.
Okay. So, it's an inefficient market where I'm about to explain. We would buy properties at $2,500 from a seller who just didn't want it anymore
Mhm.
and sell it on terms to somebody for $10,000 because the retail price was somewhere around 10,000, but we were able to get it for a really good deal because people don't want it anymore and they really can't sell it on like an MLS at 2,500 bucks. Nobody's going to list it, nobody's going to sell it at that price. And so we just mail them letters, they say yes, we buy it, we turn around, we sell it for 1,000 bucks down and 200 bucks a month for 50 months.
Mhm.
That's how we get these cash flows coming in. And we did it in a partnership because we wanted it to be passive for us. So these are operators who are out there going and finding the properties, they're negotiating the sale, they're turning around and listing it for sale on places like land.com, land and farm, Facebook marketplace, all these type of places. They turn around and then we start getting these monthly note incomes from those properties. Well, that had started out somewhat slow and has blossomed into our favorite thing. It's now over $33,000 a month
Mhm.
in gross income, and we net 70% of that because we're a 70% partner. And
Mhm.
so when we list our 50,000 a month, it's about 23, 24,000 of that is coming from the land business.
It's
Um,
kind of like private equity, essentially, is what that is. That's like a mini little private equity model. How much capital does it take to produce that type of passive income?
yeah, good question. So to begin with, I think we dropped in about 150K within the first year. And then subsequent years, we've dropped anywhere from 50 to 100,000 per year. So we're up to about 500 to 525, I think, is the number we're at right now that
Mhm.
we've put in of our own cash. And then what we've also essentially done is taken any income from those notes and reinvest it. So there's a lot more than just,
Compounding.
yeah, there's a compounding effect that's gone to into this. So we haven't taken that money as income, but we could have at any time. And so it just continues to compound and grow the portfolio. But that was the first thing that we did. And then the second thing we did is we really got onto this idea of short-term rental arbitrage. And so I had a long-term rental that I'd had for years. It's a condo in a desirable area here in Birmingham. And we recognized they allowed for short-term rentals. And so instead of renewing a lease, I said, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and put this on a short-term rental. We're going to, put some money into furnishings and so on and so forth." And we got an operator who could manage it for us. And he took that long-term rental from maybe netting me 50 to $100 a month. It was nothing to in the first month, I think it netted like almost $2,000.
Wow.
And it consistently produced in that range. And we just kept adding more and more properties. The operator would go out and find other properties we could rent and then get the arbitrage for everything above that. And so I mean, at one point, that was kicking off like $300,000 a year. We had almost 27 units
Wow.
and uh, and then later on we end up selling it back to the operator, and so now we're currently just getting an owner finance note back from him that we also report as passive income.
Wow, very unique. Again, strategies to make money are out there everywhere. And what the one thing that I notice is this is the Airbnb stuff, not necessarily private equity, but definitely the land flipping stuff, finding an operator who's got a stable operation, the background, the experience, because that's what private equity guys do. That's what venture capital guys do. They go out, find the operator, love the idea, and invest in it, which is what you guys do, right? It's not Wall Street, it's private equity. And a lot of people don't know that those types of opportunities are out there and even exist.
Right. Yeah. And what we have found in our investor DNA is while we can do some LP investing, with some different syndications and other things like that, we are more aligned with things that we can kind of influence or advise in some way. So it's not completely hands-off passive. We still have some influence or some involvement in the outcome. So, for instance, on that short-term rental business, every 2 weeks we would set a meeting with the operator, check in. Hey, so how are we doing? What's going on with this? What's your biggest challenge right now? He was doing all the work, but we were coming in and saying, hey, how can we use some of our business background, some of our ability to raise capital or to get more money into the business or efficiencies on operations? Is there anything that we can do to help the business? We like that. We
Mhm.
didn't want to be completely hands off, but we definitely didn't want to be in the day-to-day operations. And so I think you got to learn that about yourself. Like there are people that need to be LPs because they really can't affect and influence something and don't really have the time. And
Right.
so I would just encourage you to know that about yourself before you commit to deals, because it's just going to be discouraging and disappointing if you don't.
What was the value that you were able to bring to that private equity partnership besides the capital piece?
In that the short-term rental or the land flipping one?
The land flipping one, because it sounds like I guess either. If you were a GP in both of them and GP general partner, not just a passive LP investor, yeah, I'd just be curious.
Yeah. In the land one, I would say we probably brought less to the table because we didn't have experience in the land flipping business per se. But there are times when we are involved with it, like we'll say they'll ask us, "Hey, we've got this deal that we think would be good, but it's going to take some additional capital." We will then break it down and say, "Well, is that the best case, or should we just buy more notes instead of, going this route?" And so we get to be involved. I don't know that I'm necessarily in any sort of expertise in that business, but we definitely are able to advise and advise for or against some of the decisions that we make combined. In the short-term rental space, we had some ability to add some more influence in terms of driving people to the website from our podcast or
Mhm.
through our emails, and like our audience that we've been able to build at Wealth Without Wall Street. We were able to create a course with him and allow like our experience in that space to add value to the business. There's a lot of different just local contacts here in Birmingham that we were able to get him in front of, that were networking type contacts that helped him to grow the business exponentially. So there's a lot more tangible things we were able to do in that business than we were in the land business.
Yeah, because that's really the secret sauce of private equity. It's not just capital, it's some type of expertise that's a value add to the operator. A lot of times, these private equity companies are bringing the expertise of they know how to really run a business, what the management team needs to look like, the back end framework on how to operate that business, and then what they need to grow it to in order to get that, from 4 or 5x multiple to a 15x multiple. And they have the buyer pool, to do that. Right. That's what I see a lot of times in private equity. So it really boils down to what is your expertise. And I think that's might influence some of the investor DNA if they're going after these private equity deals. Because you mentioned $500,000 is kind of what it took to generate that 25,000 a month. That's like a 50% return. That's insane. That is really good. But again, it was because you were able to do the private equity opportunities, not just the stocks that make you 8, 9% per year. And you were able to use and leverage your expertise in order to do that. So would you say that for investors that are, new to this world, when they're figuring out their investor DNA and they're looking at a portion of private equity to their portfolio, that the best place to start is maybe your skill set, your background experience, and maybe pursuing operators where you potentially can add value to their business in some way based
Oh,
on
for
your
sure.
experience?
Yeah, no, I think that that's always going to pay you dividends, and you're going to be more interested in being a part of it. That's really kind of one of our key takeaways is you pay attention to things that you're interested in, things that you're not, you pretty much don't pay attention to, and they can kind of go sideways on you as a result, or they're just boring and you're not going to really do more of them if they are boring. So it kind of can slow you down in terms of building momentum towards financial freedom.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because the private equity, it can go really, really well, or it can go really, really bad. And
That's right,
that's it's high risk, high reward sometimes. But I found that the operator is really the most important thing in that.
for
Good
sure.
operators can take a terrible deal, and if there's potential to turn it around, they can figure it out, right? The background and experience. When you're, taking on clients, investors that are, I'm assuming, a lot of your clients are people who probably are overweight in the stock market and they're new to the alternative investing world. And they're like, man, I've got way too much money in stocks and bonds. I need to diversify. My Tiger 100 buddies are investing in private equity. I need to, how does somebody kind of get started on this path? Let's say that they came on board, hired you as a consultant. What are some of the first things that you would do with them?
Well, I'll say this. The funny thing is most people don't come to us thinking that they're just overweight in Wall Street.
Mm,
What they do think is, I don't have the freedom that I hoped I would have at this stage of my life, and something's wrong. So maybe there's some alternative out there that I haven't been thinking about. So that's usually when people engage with us. And the first thing that we do is we help them to see objectively, what are you wanting from life and what are you doing with money to support that or not? And it's interesting, most people will agree with this statement. They would say, I would love to have more freedom of time. I would love to be with my kids more often. I would love to invest in my community or my church, or I want to, like, we have people that join our community. Our app is free. And one of the first questions we say, when you're financially free, what will you be doing? And it's
mhm.
amazing that people always have amazing things that they are really meant to do or would love to do, but they're held back from it because their time is not their own. And so then we say, okay, well, if that's really important to you, what you do with money should support that. And what we find is people are saying one thing and then doing the opposite with money. So, as an example, I'll give you a couple of just quick examples. They want financial freedom today, right? As fast as possible. They're 35, let's say 40, 50, whatever, but they're putting money into 401ks. And we're like, so is the 401k helping you increase your passive income or reduce a monthly expense? And they say, neither. Okay. So then is it helping by putting money there, is it helping you get closer to financial freedom or further from? And they say, I never thought about it like that. I guess further from. You're like, yeah, because every dollar you put there, you're locking up until you're 59 and a half or older, and you can't use it to leverage into something today. So have you ever thought about that? They're like, absolutely never thought about that. IRAs, 529 plans, equity in your home. Like people say, man, pay down your house as fast as you can. Well, if I do that, what am I doing? I'm effectively locking up equity in my house as I'm paying it down that I'm not using to go create passive income today. Well, if I could be creating passive income today, all of a sudden I'm more and more my time is becoming my own. So why do we do that? We do that because we've been told these are good things for us. And we just taken little financial products here, financial products there, advice here, advice there. And it's not actually supporting the goal that we all would really want. And so we just help people build a system. We call it the passive income operating system. And at the very center of that system, once they get their cash flows right and they start to flow it through out of the rat race into their financial freedom accelerator, now in the middle of that, we help them design and implement what they call the infinite banking concept. Are you familiar with that?
Very familiar with that. Yep.
So we that's how we got our start in 2009. And that really gave us the dry powder to become the investors that now have 50,000 a month in passive income. So we look backwards and we say, what was the linchpin to all this? And it was understanding that I needed to put capital in a place that I could own and control and I could leverage at any time for any reason to produce passive income. And if you'd asked me 2009 about land investing, about short-term rental businesses, about Turo cars, about any of the cool things that we've invested in, I had no idea because I wasn't an investor. But what I
Right.
was doing, I was stacking up cash in preparation to becoming an investor. And so that system is what we help people do today. And then we help them take the next step and create, like become an investor. We call it the passive income lab. And it's really hands-on and helping people to learn what sort of questions do you ask when you're going to invest? What sort of investor DNA do you have? What's your buy box? Like, how do you create the first $500 a month in passive income? And we walk people through both of those steps.
Man, that sounds really cool. You called it the passive income lab. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. Yeah. Because think about like when you're in high school, you got into biology lab. What was
Yeah.
it? You're hands on, like you're doing stuff. You're not just, you're not just there observing. You're actually going and doing the work. You're actually going and interviewing operators. You're actually reviewing a PPM with your group. It's a group coach, group class, and then an individual coach that helps you build out all these things. And so we called it the lab because we wanted people to know, man, this is actually gonna be fun. Like you're gonna be a part of the process, not just being taught, you're gonna actually be doing things to learn.
If people want to learn more about you, learn more about this program, where can they go to get more information?
Yeah, great question. We actually set up a page specifically for your audience. So if you go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/recession dash resistant, wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/recession dash resistant, then you can get access to some free resources there, how to contact us, how to join our community, and learn all about these things that we're talking about.
What are some of the free resources they're going to get?
Well, first of all, there's a quiz. Most people have no idea where they stand in light of financial freedom, so we have people to do that. And then if you want, I think below that, you can actually get access to like our passive income operating system webinar and ebook. Those type of things are easily accessible as well.
All right, very cool. We'll make sure that gets posted in the show notes. Joe, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you for sharing your story. And yeah, guys, if you're on the fence about this, if you're wondering next steps and you don't have any clue kind of where to start, or maybe you've got some passive income and it's working really well, but you're interested in maybe exploring what some of those other vehicles are that Joey knows about. And I'm sure he's got really good connections as well in this industry. Make sure to go and check that out. Joe, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Oh man, likewise. Love to be in the room with people who are like-minded. So appreciate it.